Get started. Welcome, everybody. This is Charles Matthews here with Jake Jakubisin. Am I
How's it
pronouncing
going?
that correct? Yeah.
Jakubisin.
What's that?
Jakubisin.
Jakubisin. Oh, that's way better.
Hence,
That's a
hence the nickname Jake.
gotcha. Yeah, that's a much better pronunciation. So, yeah, just double check. Okay, great. And I met Jake through our mutual friend Tom Check, who has been on this channel before and been on the podcast channel before. Tom's a great connector of people.
Yeah.
And Tom said, you need to talk to Jake because he's doing this awesome work with fathers and sons in St. Louis. And my background in working with Boys to Men Mentoring Network and promoting healthy young men, and most of them, frankly, most of the young men that I got to work with and that Tom got to work with when he was there with us didn't
Hmm.
have a dad showing up for them. So I'm really
Right.
excited to hear from you about this kind of community-based father-son support system. Um, is it kind of you're working with two different programs, the Trailblazers, and that's
Hmm.
kids from first to fourth grade. So just the little
That's right.
guys. Yeah,
Just little guys.
yeah.
I think we have to start early these days, especially while the dads are more invested, as you said. As boys get older, uh, the dads tend to see their role maybe less important or kind of get removed a little bit from that. And
Oh,
so helping that right then at that early age, we think is really important.
that's great. And then the other program is the Club Magellan, and that's fifth grades through seventh grade. That's
Yes,
those challenging tween years.
that's right. Especially seventh grade. Yeah.
Yeah, and is that are you seeing that the dads are tempted to pull away a little bit, or do they start early in the program and keep going through the Trailblazers into Club Magellan?
Actually, so Club Magellan is a fairly new program. We started it precisely for the opposite reason. We were doing the first to fourth grade program, and then the kids are getting close to the end, and they said, "Well, what happens to us now?" You know, and so we said, "Okay." It's a little bit different. Obviously, the boys are a different age group, different developmental stages, and so we program differently for those two different groups. But um, it was a nice thing to see from these dads that, well, hold on, yeah, I want to be there. I want to be there, have this time with my son.
And so it happened by demand. It sounds like they wanted to continue.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So take us into the Trailblazer program for a minute and just tell us what would we see. And before you do that, I just want to kind of reach out to the guys that might be watching this live or recorded. You
Mhm.
know, in my experience working doing men's and boys work, it's often really fraught. Our relationship with our dads isn't always easy. And sometimes when we
Absolutely.
hear about, even when we hear about positive work between fathers and sons, sometimes I get a little triggered, but I get triggered into joy. My dad died when I was 10, so I missed out on a lot.
Hmm.
Um, and when I hear about great relationships, or at least relationships where there's an attempt, right? I mean, that's the bar is kind of low for dads in America, so like any attempt is awesome. I get triggered into joy, but I also get triggered into a little bit of grief for what I missed out on. So
Sure.
that just might be coming up for you, and I encourage any man listening to this to just pay attention. Notice that grief or that excitement or that joy. Notice as it sits down next to you, and let that be if it comes up. Maybe it won't, but with all that said, Jake, what would we see if we were a fly on the wall at a Trailblazers event?
Yeah, I guess just for us to echo that for a minute, I'd say all these men out there that might be listening, they wouldn't be wrong for feeling this way. And I think we're in a particular position, maybe as a culture, where many men have grown up with this missing piece, kind of feeling like something they didn't get what they wanted or deserved. And that's part of what led us to start the Trailblazers, because we saw that. because we saw that um, circumstances in our culture were such that dads didn't even necessarily know, like, how do I have that time with my son?
Yeah.
How do I do that?
Yeah.
Um, and I'm sure you probably talked about some of the stuff before on this channel, but particularly like fathers, you see in media and
Yeah.
pop culture, TV shows, movies, where kind of dads are sneered at, and if they try to spend time doing
Yeah.
something initiative, it's like they're mocked.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
We roll our eyes at them, and yeah.
exactly, exactly. Um, and
Dad,
so
God, leave me alone.
exactly. So the Trailblazers um, tried to provide a venue where not only was that um, allowed for, but also encouraged.
Hmm.
And certainly, yeah, the it's not it's not out of the question that even some of these dads that were here um, didn't have that kind of relationship that they wanted with their own father.
Yeah.
Um, and I think each man out there is dealing with that. I think fatherhood is a kind of a critical component of what it is to be a man.
Hmm.
Oh,
I mean, that's a big statement. I mean, that's huge to say that fatherhood is a critical component of being a man, and nobody gets a manual. I mean, nobody gets a manhood manual to begin with. We talk all the time at mentoring.
sure. Oh,
A
yeah.
lot of men grow up thinking like everybody else got the manual and I didn't. And I know that fathers are just like, nobody handed me. I have no, like, how do I hold this child? What
Yeah.
do I do when she cries, when he fusses? Like, somebody. And
Yeah,
I
exactly.
think that's why I put so much
Yeah.
stress on
The day they
marriages.
handed out those at school was the day that you were absent,
Right,
right?
right, right. It's your fault, and that's what we take on as men. It's our fault. Somehow I wasn't deemed worthy of getting the manual, of receiving this information, or because my dad was gone, there were no role models for me,
Yeah.
whatever it is. So is that
Yeah. Or we
is
sort
it?
of blame our circumstances. You know, 100 years ago, or maybe more, in America, um, and it still happens in different places. The most fathers trained their sons in their trade,
Yeah,
and like that doesn't happen as often anymore.
right.
And so you might say like, oh well, I just don't have. Um, we live in a time where I wasn't given like the right set of
Yeah,
circumstances.
yeah. Dad disappears. In the starting in the 20s, 30s, the dad disappears for the whole day, and is
Right.
gone, and doesn't come back until the evening. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And then he's tired. And so the
And then
kid
he's
only
tired.
sees tired dad.
Right.
Uh, Dad just wants to decompress, turn the TV on, read
Yep.
the newspaper, or whatever.
Yep.
Um,
And
and
unfortunately, all of the relationship building skills have been deemed feminine,
mhm,
right? It's like communicating, listening, holding,
mhm,
laughing, being physical with. All of those are, unfortunately, in kind of the dominant culture, are things that men aren't supposed to do because they're the
right,
what females do.
right,
And the idea that men actually can and should and are able to hold, listen, caress, be present, laugh, cry, whatever it is with kids. I think it's uncomfortable for a lot of men. We've been told since grade school, oh, boys don't do that.
yeah,
Yeah.
right,
So what is it you guys do to help to help push back against we talked about kind of the economic circumstances of how work works now,
yeah,
and now almost nobody's home for the kids. We just talked real briefly about the ideas about manhood being separate from all of those relationship building skills, and you get these men showing up without the manual, without maybe having been role modeled by their own fathers. Are they just like showing up in a gym and you guys are like, all right, here we go? Or what do you do to help help guys kind of bootstrap themselves into a positive fatherhood?
yeah, sure. Well, we have kind of a defined structure that we do each session, keep it consistent, um, let them know what to expect each time. But basically, it's a 2 hour thing, just like we do it on the third Sunday. Doesn't have to be then. That's when we do it. And I think right off the bat, it kind of takes a choice. Well, especially in the fall, maybe not, always this fall, but that's
Yeah.
usually like football time.
Oh,
So
right.
it's a choice. Like, okay, let me not worry about the game that's on. Let me choose this time with my son. And it's just 2 hours. And that doesn't seem like very much, um, especially for these boys. It's so funny. The very first one we did, I remember a couple years ago. And at the end of those 2 hours, I mean, this kid was so happy. We didn't even do that impressive an activity, but the kid was just so happy. So he says, "Dad, when's the next one?" And the dad says, "Oh, it's next month." Next month? That's the reaction.
Yeah.
Because for the kid, that's a long time.
Hmm.
But for the dad, like a lot happens in a month,
Yeah.
that goes by very quickly.
Yeah.
So in just those 2 hours, we're kind of setting a tone by which the the dads and the boys can start to form this relationship.
So what do you
And
think
it's
it,
centered
what do you,
around
yeah.
virtue, actually.
Oh, okay. Well, before we get into that, what do you think it is that that young man, that little boy, was so happy about? Was it feeling the relationship with his dad? Was it seeing all these other boys? What do you think made him so sad that it was going to be 30 days before he gets to do it again?
Whole 30 days.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I think it was the time with dad.
Yeah.
Um, we usually structure the activities so that um, it is like the fathers and the sons doing something together, right?
Yeah.
And really, it doesn't matter. I mean, one time we were kind of scrambling, and we did a paper airplane contest. But
Oh,
because I mean it's silly, but because it's just the dads spending time with their sons,
yeah.
working on something together. Like this was a great time. Everybody had a blast.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it doesn't really matter. It's just that time like together.
Yeah.
And as you said, like the bar is sometimes like really low, especially for kind of a young boy like looking up at his father. Like, I mean, he thinks his dad is the world, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But unfortunately, like most men don't get that. They don't
Yeah.
hear that. They don't even get to actually experience that all the time. Or maybe they have, but then they forget it. And this is definitely, I think, provide an opportunity for some men to get reminded of that for
Yeah.
sure.
Well, that's a huge responsibility. And it would be kind of like, how do you integrate that? Okay, this little critter thinks I am God. It's like they're watching every move I make. Every word that comes out of my face is going to be, have some impact on this kid. Like, what do I do with that? As a person, I know that I'm flawed. I
Yeah.
know that I don't deserve to be worshipped. I know all in my head. I know all of the
All too
ways,
well. All too
all
well.
too well. Yeah, all of the ways in which I'm a terrible person.
Yeah.
Um, how do I, God, yeah, how do I just let it be okay for this kid to want to look at me and follow me all the time? That's got to be really challenging. And I'm speaking from outside because I don't have kids of my own. I've mentored thousands of kids, but I've
Hmm.
never had any of my own. And even
Sure.
as a teacher, even as a high school teacher, realizing like, oh, I can't be sarcastic. That doesn't work. The high school kids can be sarcastic as all get out, but like not for the teacher. No, no, because
Right.
they're even though I'm just like the high school teacher, they're like gotta gotta keep an eye on that guy.
Hmm. Hmm.
Anyway, that's off to one
Yeah.
side.
Vision
Yeah,
of authority. What's going on? Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So how do the virtues come into this?
Yeah. Well, I think it speaks directly to your point about like um, there's dad even like has this recognition that um, I'm imperfect,
Yeah,
and so yeah, it's precisely we introduce the Trailblazers actually telling the story of King Arthur, pulling the sword from the stone, and and what happens before he actually can pull this sword from the stone? Well, he has to get ready,
Yeah.
and in this case, it's the father figure of Merlin
Yep.
who is helping him, kind of helping him to grow to be a worthy and just king. Um, and so Trailblazers is that. It's an opportunity for the fathers and sons to kind of grow in virtue together. And I asked the boys, um, I say, hey, who's the king of your house? It's automatic. They know, like, hey, dad is the king. Dad's the king.
Yeah.
And they
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
And then they can also see that most likely they're going to grow up to be a king too, right?
Of
And so
course.
it's very important, like this, like, I think it puts it in context, like virtue, like, oh, like yawn, boring, like who wants to do that? But then you actually start talking about, loyalty and justice and generosity and, humility, the things that somebody would need to be kind of a worthy king,
Yeah.
and they get it like
Oh
automatically.
yeah.
And then the fathers do too, like, oh yeah, like we're here struggling for character,
Yeah.
for what's inside.
So they're growing together. So the you're not setting the expectation that the dads are supposed to be perfect, but it
Right.
sounds like you're setting the expectation that they're going to grow and learn
Yeah.
alongside
That
their
the
littles.
dads are farther along on their own journey,
Yep.
but we're growing together.
Yeah.
And so each month we might have like a virtue that we highlight, um, and then the activity really is designed to, like, here's a place to put these things into practice, and then kind of take that thing home, that idea home, and try some more, right?
Yeah.
And we hear it comes up. We kind of make up these sort of characters that kind of vilify the vices per se.
Yeah.
So there's this one, I call him Mr. Moore. He basically the kind of the vice of excess, right? So say no to Mr. Moore.
Yeah.
So at snack, like say no to Mr. Moore,
So
and
so they
so
have a
and we
shared. So
hear these,
the parent and the kid end up with a shared language.
right,
Okay.
exactly.
Do you ever hear any stories that the kid says to dad, "Watch out for Mr. Moore"? Does it end up working both ways?
Probably. I haven't heard that. I haven't
Yeah.
heard that. But
Yeah.
I do know that it comes up at home, um, where
Yeah.
this shared language is used.
Yeah.
And I think that's very powerful, and it opens up the opportunity to have discussions around this thing versus, these dads didn't get the manual. Like,
Right.
oh, how do I even begin to approach to, hey, let's talk about the virtue of whatever.
Yeah.
And I think that's where some of the power of the Trailblazers comes in. It's like, oh, like um, kind of ready made, just add water.
Yeah. 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 So you are handing them the manual. Did they? Do you hear feedback from the dads about what that's like for them? What kind of stories do they tell?
Absolutely. Um, well, I think one of the telling thing is, so we usually do like two virtue talks,
Hmm.
so to speak. One is for the boys, really quick, simple, and then they go out and do some sports while the dads stay in and get a talk, usually by one of the dads,
Yeah.
um, about who's taken some time to think about, hey, like, how do I help form my son in X like area of being a man?
Yeah.
And what's very telling is almost always that goes way over time because all the dads are sharing, excited, comparing like notes and asking
Uh-huh.
each other questions. And so I think that to your point, to your question is like, okay, like it's working.
They're hungry. They're hungry for it. It sounds like
Yes,
they're hungry to
absolutely.
talk about these weighty subjects, difficult subjects. What is virtue? What is humility? What is kingship?
Sure.
But
And how do I be a dad?
how do I be a dad?
A very weighty question, right? I
Yeah,
mean, underlying, how
right,
do you get this natural, almost instinctual, like um, protection of your little critter, as you call them.
right, right, right.
And I want to do good here. How do I do it?
Yeah. So something that you can't see right now, Jake, is that underneath us is a banner that says "Redefining Strength," which is kind of my tagline. It's kind of what I'm
Oh,
what
cool.
I'm promoting, this idea that many of the really important, especially relationship building and really important leadership characteristics, aren't labeled as strength. So, like we said, listening,
Right.
humility, some of these same virtues that you're talking about.
Mhm.
And part of what I'm doing with this series and with the podcasting and the book and everything else is promoting this idea, well, kind of sharing this idea that when I do some of those things, when I'm vulnerable, when I'm open, and in particular when I'm open and vulnerable with kids, with teenage boys in my case, um, or when I listen to them and their concerns, I feel really powerful. I don't feel weak and namby-pamby. I don't feel like a sissy or whatever. I feel like, wow, my
Yeah.
shoulders get square, my chest gets a little bit bigger. I'm like, wow, here I am for this younger person. This
Right.
feels great. Or even sometimes when I've had to apologize to a younger person, like, you know what, I didn't sleep enough last night. I lost it on you. I didn't listen to your concerns. I made a bunch of assumptions. Whatever it is, it just like feels like this is king energy is one of the ways that we talked about it at Boys to Men.
Sure.
And it's
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it sounds like you're doing some of that same work to help dads redefine their role in their children's life, not just the disciplinarian, not just the breadwinner, not just all of these traditionally strong masculine modes, but somebody who's actually digging into the heart work of becoming a good person.
Right. Yeah, I think I love your redefining strength tagline because I think that's at the key. We have these sort of assumptions that um, like they're wrong, and we kind of know they're wrong, but then we keep falling into that rut.
Yeah,
But then when we feel that king energy, like, oh yeah, like that helps it click, right? And we
yeah,
have to continually remind ourselves that that's where it is. That's where the real power is, the real strength is.
yeah.
Um,
So what drew you to this work? Do you have a son?
no, I would say it's my own father that helped draw me to this work, and my parents in general. I mean, love them to death. My dad was not a perfect father, by all means. As you said, there's no perfect dad, on this earth. No
Right.
human is just not gonna. Uh, the kid might look at him like he's God, but
Yeah.
he's not God.
Right. Right. Right.
And yeah, but I think I was blessed with a good relationship, and I saw the importance of that. And I was thinking about one particular moment that really um, kind of defining moment. We went up to the Indiana Dunes, um, on Lake Michigan there, and I was up in the woods with my cousins and my brother, and somehow I got lost.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and so I mean, like at first, like okay, no problem, like just head for the beach, like can't be that hard.
Yeah.
Pretty thick woods though, and so after a while, like the fear starts to set in, and then it was my dad who found me.
Hmm.
Like he wasn't even there with my brothers and my cousins and such, but he recognized that I was not there when they all came back to the beach, and he went looking. It's a big area,
Yeah.
and that was kind of defining moment because so like wow, like dad is here to protect me, um, and that was not something. I mean, I think it was a time where he was having to travel a lot for work. He actually worked. His company that he worked for was about 3 hours away from where we were living,
Mm.
so he wasn't there a lot during the week. Um, and it's just like, oh, like no, like he does love me, he does care about me, um, and recognizing like that importance.
Yeah.
Um, and so of course, like I wasn't thinking then like, oh yeah, I
Right.
wanna help fathers and sons to have a, but after college, you start thinking about like what's important. At least it wasn't in my in
Yeah.
my case.
I think
And
I think your generation is finding service much earlier than my generation did. We
why do you
were,
think that?
I think, well, I think, frankly, I think 9/11 and the crash of 2008 um, opened your generation up to the importance of community and giving and social capital
Mm-hmm.
being more sustainable, more more in control. Our social capital, we have more control over that than whether dad gets laid off or whether planes run into the World Trade Center.
Sure.
I grew up without those big national um, tragedies, so that my generation was basically told we're a little bit far afield, but this is great. It's like you just keep doing this, and you'll get the wealth and security
And
and
therefore happiness.
family and happiness and all that stuff. You just keep doing this and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
And my guess is I don't know what your experience is, but my guess is folks like you and younger realized pretty early on, like, oh, nothing's gonna actually get handed to us.
Mm-hmm.
We have to build the community. We have to build the community and the meaning
Yeah.
now instead of waiting until later.
Sure. It's interesting. I never really stopped to think about why. It's something that I sort of see in friends. People are recognizing the importance of giving, um, and seeing that in that giving that they're finding themselves. Um, but in that, like, oh, why,
Yeah,
why us at this stage in our life versus another stage in our life? I
yeah,
haven't. So this
yeah.
is interesting to think
No,
about.
definitely. My peers when I was your age, I'm guessing you're in your 30s.
Mhm.
We were still trying to find ourselves. We were still trying to find ourselves through adventure, through different jobs, through relationships, through whatever. So there wasn't. We didn't know to try and find ourselves in service to others. That was like some people did the Peace Corps and we're like, what are you doing? Where are you going? For how long? And you can't drink the water? That wasn't exactly that bad, but no. But it just thank you for at a relatively young age, like jumping into building community and building healthy community with men and boys. Again, those relationship skills and those relationship tasks for most of the men in my generation, those were all feminized. Women do that. Women in
Mhm.
and my generation, especially older than me, we put all of the emotional work and all the spiritual work on
Yeah.
women. That was their job, and they've resented that. We're finding out now that they've been resenting that for years. Just pick up a relationship book, will you guys? Like, just do so, just pick up
Yeah.
a diaper once. Um, yeah, so this is great. I'm curious what you hear from the moms. Do the moms provide any feedback for what you guys are doing?
They love it. I mean, even if the dads love it, like maybe the moms love it even just a little bit more because they are saying, "Oh yes, like dad is kind of stepping into this role of being the father, of taking that time with the sons." Um, and so the moms do love it, and they're very supportive. of that. Even though like Sunday family day, like this is even like this is part of that picture
Right.
because if dad goes has that time with son, once a month, like okay, we're winning as a family unit here. And so we do get some really great feedback from moms who just, they're just tickled by it all. They just
Yeah.
love it.
I'm sure they fall down and call you blessed. Like, oh my God, thank you for taking care of my guys.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
we do.
yeah. That's what we would hear that a lot with the moms from Boys to Men.
Yeah.
Just so and again, most of the boys that we worked with weren't living with their biological father, so these were moms who were just so relieved that somebody male and healthy was taking
Mhm.
care of their young man, and their hearts are just so full of fear and concern about how their son is going to turn out, and to
Mhm.
to give them a little sense of relief, like, oh, it's going to be okay. There's some other people some other people who are stepping in to help
Right,
take care of
right.
this. Yeah. And you were
Yeah,
talking about the importance of being aligned with the family and not trying to um, not trying to tell the family how to do it, but how to just sort of be working with them.
absolutely. Yeah, we really see our role as kind of complementing what they're already doing, what they're already trying to do at home. We're not the heroes here, like they are, and you know, and really like nobody can replace that unique relationship of parent to child,
Yeah.
and therefore like we want to recognize and support that. um, and I think that it's a nice position to be in, frankly. Like one, uh, we get to witness like um, you have this tagline, redefining strength.
Yeah.
Like wow, like this is super powerful. Like even just you mentioned earlier the kind of the emotions that pop up when you hear about some of these positive things,
Yeah.
but just to like see that kid like um I forget what activity it was. um I think it was when we did kind of like a rally car. They made the fathers and sons made the rally car, kind of similar to a Pinewood Derby
Yep. Yep.
they might do in like a Cub Scouts
Yeah.
type thing. But the boy, like he didn't even win, but after his car like raced, he runs over and he gives a kiss to his dad on the cheek, and it was like the dad was kind of like surprised, like because when does that happen?
Yeah.
Um, but then and for me, it was just like wow, like this is this is pretty cool.
Yeah.
What's happening here?
To see love being expressed between two guys, even though they're totally
Absolutely.
different ages, just love being expressed between two guys. Yeah. That's
And
fantastic.
and between a son and his father, I mean,
Yeah.
between two guys, like that doesn't happen enough, as you were saying. Like, are we allowed
Yeah.
to express affection?
Right.
Uh, but when you have kind of all too often like a cold or a distant relationship, to see like, okay, no, this is good, like, and that can only lead to good things.
Right. Yeah, and let's take off from there a little bit. I assume that and that you and the organizers of this program know that this next generation of men that's being created through this program is going to be even better fathers. You're gonna create this cohort of active, engaged fathers now, and then these 7 to 14-year-old boys are going to become dads who are grounded in their own ability to express themselves, grounded in their own ability to talk about virtues, to think about virtues, to make mistakes and bounce back from them.
Yeah,
their feet are going to be rooted.
that's definitely the hope. I mean, I don't think that it's like a machine, like input like boy
Yeah,
trailblazers
yeah,
outcomes like perfect man, like
right, right,
no, like but it is it is something that helps, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the hope that um, we can help there to be, yeah, this a next generation of kind of empowered fathers, and that will only lead to, um, their own children having a good childhood, a good experience, maybe a good father son relationship, or what have you. So
Yeah.
yeah, we hope that it's going to have
some of their
an
partners are going to
exponential.
be so confused. Some of the moms and dads, with these other new dads are going to be like, you wait, you want to do what? You would you're hugging your son? What's happening? I'm confused. This was not how I was raised. I don't know what's going on here.
Right,
This is
right.
great. So do you have, given that your program is in St. Louis, we don't have it here in Prescott where I am. I'm guessing not everybody who's listening and watching right now has access to this. Is there anything, is there anything somebody can do at home? Anybody, any advice or a call to action or a takeaway for a dad that they could do anywhere?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think this, what we actually do, like at the core, is like we help people to carve out 2 hours a month to spend time together. So anybody can do that. Like you don't need the Trailblazers per se to do that.
Mm-hmm.
It can be the stupidest little activity at like paper airplanes, right? Um, but that is important, like that carving out of time together.
Yeah.
Um, I guess like beyond that, like finding a group of like-minded men, who kind of that village, right? Of, oh, other people are doing this too,
Yeah.
and that kind of helps support the structure. Oh yeah, we know like second, third Tuesday, or sorry, Sunday,
Yeah.
that those 2 hours, right? Yeah, I want to protect that time,
Yeah.
and so and then I think virtue, this is like timeless stuff. I mean, when we talk about the virtues, we kind of go back to the ancient Greeks,
Yeah.
the philosophers who were kind of naming these things. And so you see these across time and culture. And do you need like our like presentation of the virtues? No, like they're there, and they have these names because they're looking at one aspect of like struggling to be a better human being,
Yeah.
and anybody can do that for sure. And I think there's a lot of great books out there, on these kinds of topics, and like
Mm-hmm.
specifically like kind of growing in virtue with your children. Um, and so I would suggest that as a resource for sure.
Is that the
Uh,
title of the book, Growing in Virtue?
no, I guess I point to, one's called Father, the Family Protector,
Mm-hmm.
by Jim Stenson. Um, Another one that I really like is From Temperament to Character,
Oh,
which is kind of Becoming a Virtuous Leader, is the subtitle. That's by Alex Havard, and less about the father-son relationship, but very good overview of like kind of these classic like character aspects,
yeah.
presented in a very friendly, like fun way, memorable stories,
Great.
of other good men in history. And then another one I like is called The Indispensable Dad by Stephen Gabriel. Um, and very short, like easy book. It talks a lot of good ideas on like the virtues of like being a father, and then kind of how you pass that on to your children.
That's great. That's great. I'll ask you actually to email me those because I didn't take notes what you're saying. But if you can email
Sure.
those to me later, and I'll put them in the comments for this on Facebook, and I'll put them in the comments when I upload this to YouTube as well, so that people have
Sure.
access
I
to
can
that.
do that.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you, Jake, for spending this time with me. I feel inspired. I feel a little, frankly, a little jealous that you're getting to hang out with dads and their kids.
Yeah.
I got a couple of cats that I hang out with these days, but I even have my crazy cat guy mug right now
Nice.
instead of the world's greatest dad. Um, but yeah, thank you for spending the time with me. I really appreciate it,
No,
and
this is
telling
great.
this. Yeah, this is. I mean, it's an inspirational story of you know of men getting out of the rut. You described that stereotypical sitcom dad who's sort of a
Right.
buffoon, sort of a grown-up baby,
Yeah.
not concerned with virtue or humility, but just with beer and getting a laugh or whatever it is. And we don't have to be that way. Men don't have
No,
to be that way. We're much more flexible, and we can grow and change and be there for our kids. Which, gosh, what could change the world more than that?
absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that's key to happiness right there, what you just said.
Great, great. Well, thanks everybody for being here. Thanks everybody for watching this, and we'll be back in succeeding weeks with more conversations like this about redefining strength, about looking at manhood through a hopeful and slightly critical lens at the same time. So hopefully you're here for that. Thanks so much.